All right, today we're diving into the story of a fascinating figure, King Asa of Judah. His reign lasted a whopping 41 years, and it's just this incredible story of faith, of wild success, and, well, what can happen when power starts to get to you? And his story really makes you ask a pretty tough question, one that applies to any leader, really. Is it possible to finish just as strong as you started? Let's dig in and see what we can learn from Amasa's life. Okay, so to really get a handle on Asa, you have to picture the world he was born into. This wasn't the glorious, united empire of his famous ancestors, David and Solomon. Nope. He inherited a kingdom that was literally torn in half. So Asa takes the throne of Judah right around 911 BC. And you gotta understand, this place was a political tinderbox. He was surrounded by rival kingdoms, all jockeying for position. So from the very beginning, he wasn't just a king trying to rule, he was a survivor. So how does he kick off this long reign? Well, he comes in hot, with absolute fire and conviction. The first chapter of Asa's story is all about him being this incredibly passionate religious reformer, a king who had faith and, maybe more importantly, wasn't afraid to act on it. He launches this all-out campaign to purify his kingdom's worship. And get this, he even takes down his own grandmother, the Queen Mother, for her idolatry. Can you imagine? It was this huge, radical public move that screamed, "This is what matters to me." And after that, during a rare decade of peace, he got busy building up Judah's defenses. But peace never lasts long in that part of the world. It was shattered by this massive invasion from the south. A guy named Zerah the Ethiopian comes marching in with an army so huge, it looks like it was going to just completely swallow Judah whole. So here he is, facing absolutely impossible odds. And what does he do? He doesn't pull out the battle plans, he doesn't strategize, he prays. And it worked. He won this stunning victory, which everyone saw as proof of his total reliance on God. But as the years went by, another threat emerged, this time from the north. And this new problem was going to test Asa's faith in a completely different and maybe more revealing way. And this is where we see the two Asas, right? The two sides of the same coin. On one hand, you have this massive, overwhelming army, and his response is pure faith. On the other hand, a rival king starts building a strategic fort on his border. And what does he do? He turns to politics, to bribery. He literally raids the temple treasury to pay off an ally. A total 180. Now, from a purely political standpoint, this was a brilliant move, no doubt about it. Asa pays off this foreign king to go attack Israel. This forces his rival, King Baasha, to drop everything and run back to defend his own turf. Asa then swoops in, grabs all the abandoned building materials, and uses them to beef up his own cities. Super clever, super pragmatic. But it definitely came with a spiritual price tag. And that move, that shift in strategy, really kicks off the final act of Asa's life. This is the part of the story that's all about the consequences, for him personally and for his nation, of relying on human cleverness instead of faith. But a move like that doesn't just go unnoticed. A prophet named Hananiah shows up and confronts Asa face to face. He gives him this absolutely blistering critique, saying, "Because you trusted the king of Aram and not your God, you're going to be at war from now on." So how does Asa react? With humility? Nope. With pure rage. See, the young king who felt powerless and prayed for help was gone. In his place was a powerful man who could not stand being challenged. So he throws the prophet in prison and, sadly, even starts to oppress some of his own people. Then comes the final test. In his last years, Asa gets this really severe disease in his feet. But even then, in his sickness, the story notes that he didn't seek help from God, but only from his physicians. His journey from complete faith in God to complete faith in human solutions was, well, it was complete. So when we look back, what's the verdict on Asa? The biblical account paints this picture of spiritual decline, for sure. But what happens when we bring in another perspective, like archaeology? What does it tell us about his kingdom? Well, what's so fascinating is that the archaeology suggests a pretty stable, growing kingdom under Asa's long rule. We see fortified cities, administrative growth, which creates this incredible paradox, doesn't it? As Asa's personal faith seemed to crumble, his kingdom, at least on the outside, was actually thriving. So that leaves us with the big question. What is Asa's legacy? Do we remember him as a righteous king who just stumbled near the finish line? Or is his entire life a cautionary tale about how success can be the very thing that threatens a leader's integrity? The real answer, as it so often is probably somewhere in that complicated space right in between.